Hey, Chandler Bolt here, and in this video I want to talk about how to train and develop your team by creating an individual development plan, also known as an IDP. Now, I was at a leadership offsite recently, and the topic came up is like, how do we be intentional or more intentional about developing the talent on our team? So, we're in a fast growing company at Self-Publishing School. We've been on the Inc. 5000 list as one of the 5,000 fastest growing private companies in America the last 3 years in a row. And one of my favorite concepts that relates to this, I talk about this all the time with the team, is that when you're at a fast growth company, you have to, say your company's growing by 40% a year, you have to grow by 40% per year just to re-qualify for your current role. Think about that. Let that set in. You've got to grow by 40% or whatever that percentage is for your company just to re-qualify for your existing role. So growth is not just a hopeful thing, it's an expected thing. And growth is the standard, because if you are not growing, you will end up out. It's up or out, right? Like you're either growing in the company, in your role, or into higher level roles, or you're leaving the company. So I think you need to be really intentional about growing and developing the people on your team. But this came out at the leadership offsite. We were talking about, okay, well, how do we do this though? Like, it's one thing to know you need to do it. We have a training budget that doesn't often get used or doesn't get used as much as we want it to. So like, how do we be more intentional about encouraging our team to take time to develop themselves, and about utilizing the training budget that we have to train and develop our team? And at the end of the day, it came down to this. He said, I think the real main issue is that we're waiting on them to tell us how they want to develop, and we need to actively take accountability for that process, right? So we're going to facilitate and help them land on how they want to and need to develop and grow, but we need to take accountability as leaders to that growth and development and intentionality around that. That's how we came to and developed the individual development plan. So someone on my team used this at a different company. We've rolled this out at our company. It's worked extremely well. And I'm going to highly recommend that you use this to be intentional about every single person's development on your team and in your company. All right. So in this video, I'm going to walk through what is it. So I'm going to screen share and show you kind of the individual development plan and walk through that. You can just use this template if you'd like. And then I'm going to share with you some tips and tricks on how to go through this process and lead your team through this process really well. All right, so here we are inside the individual development plan template. This is a template that you can use, and I'm going to recommend that you create this for yourself or clone this or anything like that. So check this out. So this is the template, and then you're going to clone this for each person on your team. You see this big note, clone this first, make a copy before editing. So here's what this looks like. You've got the name of the person, their position, their manager, the date. This is basic stuff so far. But then we love personality types at Self-Publishing School. So maybe you use this, maybe you don't, but we have the MPTI or Myers-Briggs, we've got Colby, we've got DISC and the Strengths Finders. And then also, and this is super important, you're linking up to their job scorecard, their last evaluation. So if someone's been there a year at Self-Publishing School, they should have had an evaluation. And if they don't have an evaluation, then we can set one up or just give them evaluation type feedback. And then we got the time at the company, all right? Now you got the overview of the IDP, here are the goals. And this first section is their current job development, all right? Now this is super important. And I've got a link to a video here. This is a concept that I'm very passionate about. It's bloom where you're planted. So I put this video right here because I want people to remember this concept is that, it's very easy in any company, in any position to look to what's next. Right? We're always looking towards like, oh man, I'm looking to my next thing and not blooming where we're planted. So that's what I want to remind people is like, it's important that you bloom where you're planted. And part of that is looking at your current strengths and looking at your developmental areas, right? Now these strengths probably could be pulled from the eval or, and also these development areas can be pulled from there, or you can have this via discussion with your manager, all right? Or with your direct report. So this is the first step is let's have a discussion around this. Let's brainstorm and come up with these things. And then, maybe they've done this already, or maybe you kind of tease this out in conversation, but we're brainstorming. We'll probably have up to 5 to 7 of each. And then we want to drill down and put these in order of importance per thing. All right. So we'll kind of order these in order of importance. And then we're getting to action items and time frame. All right. So this is the basic current job development. Now let's move to the next section. this is the personal career development. So now we start to look at, hey, and they write this out, or they can tell this to you verbally, is, hey, what are your short-term career goals? So within 2 years. And then let's talk long-term career goals. So 2 to 10 years from now. Where do you see yourself going? And you might really have to tease this out, because sometimes people are shy about this. They don't really want to share their real thoughts. But say, hey, for real, like, where are you going? Where do you want to grow? What does that look like? Like, let's really paint a picture of that. And then this is kind of the final piece. We get down into developmental objectives, supporting activities, supportive training, other activities, etc. And then they sign it, and the manager signs it, right? So this is a creed or commitment to each other. And then for me personally, I have, other things that help with this, just resources and docs that we use specific to this. So maybe it's how to choose which book to read next. If there's a book that they want to go through, our internal trainings, just a bunch of internal trainings that I use. And that's how we use this process, okay? So there you have it. That is the individual development plan process. I want to cover a couple more tips to make sure that you maximize this process and that you can lead this process well. So I mentioned this earlier, but often this starts with a verbal conversation. So you can have them watch this video maybe before you even have that conversation. That's going to cover a lot of the basics and a lot of logistics. But maybe you want to start and say, hey, let's just talk some of this out. Maybe they're an external processor. You say, hey, let's talk some of this stuff out. Let's talk about your current strengths. Let's talk about your developmental areas. So you're kind of seeding the conversation. You're helping them focus and all those things. And so we've had an initial conversation. That's how a lot of the leaders at Self-Publishing School like to do it. And then number 2 is they're responsible for filling out the full thing. Some people like to start there. Sometimes that works as well. And if you have someone who, they're a great leader, or they're highly self-aware, or you've had a lot of feedback and discussion around this, for me, I'll just say, hey, start by filling this out and then let's talk. So now they're doing the mission critical kind of information and stuff up front. They filled it out. And then this is where it really becomes powerful and your role as a leader really starts. So you're starting to look at these things. What did they come up with as their current strengths and their current developmental areas? And this is where you can give feedback. Maybe they totally missed the mark and you've got to say, hey, we really need to improve this. And here's a couple things that I see. What do you think about that? Or maybe it's pretty good, but they've got 7 things and you say, hey, let's bring this down, let's tighten this up. And a lot of times I have people that they'll say, here are my 7 things. What do you think are the most important? Right? And so that's really helpful, because now we can say, hey, let's look at these 3 things and let's prioritize these 3 things in order of importance, both on the strength side of things and on the developmental area side of things. Right? So your job as leaders is to help them tighten up their focus on current strengths, developmental areas, and then really that works down into here, which is what are the objectives, the activities, and the training. All right. Now, this is, we've only been through this process one full time with everyone on the team at Self-Publishing School. So I'm sure we'll continue to update, improve, and kind of build out this process. And everyone kind of goes about this a little bit differently. But what I'd really encourage you to do, and this is super important. So let's say we've got your strengths, we've got your developmental areas. Now what you need to do is say, hey, what are the activities over the next 30 to 90 days, or maybe 90 days to 6 months? What are the activities where you can grow in this area? So maybe it's, I want to grow as a leader. So what are activities? Maybe I'm going to have you lead 4 meetings. I'm going to have you lead this specific project. Like, what are the action items or the time frame? Or you can roll down in here and put activities. And so what are the stretch assignments? Maybe this is job shadowing. Like, list details and things that you want them to do. And then also, what is the supporting training? So that's really the 2-prong approach, is that for each developmental objective or area that someone wants to grow, you've got activities and you've got training. And the activities is how they practice it. The activities are how they learn. But then the supporting training is how they sharpen the saw, or how they get better. So I want to make sure that I've got both, and you want to make sure that they have both. And a lot of times the activities are the easy part and the training is the hard part. So then the task is, all right, I need you to go out and find a really good training that's going to help you grow in XYZ, right? Or what's a book that you can read? What's an online course that you can take? What's an event that you can go to that you can grow in that area? So there you have it. That's how you go through the IDP, or individual development plan process yourself, or with your team, okay? So I hope you found this helpful, and I hope that you're able to lead this well with your team, but then also go through this, and we talk about managing up. Go through this yourself with your leader in mind, and how can I make this process easy? How can I take time? How can I make the time to self-reflect and think on these things? Because this isn't just something that you're going to think about overnight. Like, this might be weeks. You might be working on this with your manager over the course of weeks, and I'll tell you, as a leader who's going through this process with others, what is extremely helpful is when they take time to think, to stop, to reflect. They take the time to actually do it. They do it ahead of time. They come prepared. And then we can really have a discussion about how I can help you grow, how we can help you grow, and we can be intentional around that development. And at the end of the day, I can't, or we can't, talking about leaders on the team, we can't care about your development more than you do. Right? So you got to care about this. You got to take this seriously. You got to go through this process. And if you're a leader, you got to hold your team and challenge your team and hold them accountable to taking this process seriously, right? It's super important. Take the time to think about it, go through it. And at the end of the day, this is going to be an action plan that will help you develop and help you grow in your career, yes, but also personally, professionally, 360 degrees of your life will get better if you come up with a good plan here. And this is kind of a pro tip, is if you can somehow connect this to your personal life as well and say, oh, if I grow in this area, it's also going to help in my relationships, maybe with my kids, with people that I care about. Well, then you're going to be even more motivated to grow in that area. All right. So take the time to do this. I hope that you found this helpful. Scroll below this video right now. Comment. Let me know. What were your thoughts? Was there anything confusing here? Is there anything that you see that needs to be improved? What were your biggest takeaways? Take 2 minutes right now, especially if you're on the Self-Publishing School team. Take 2 minutes right now. Scroll below this video. Comment on this video. Let me know what you think. Let me know your takeaways. I read and respond to every single comment. So no matter whether you're on the team or whether you're not, I'd love to hear your comments and takeaways on this video. Or how do you run this in your company or with your team? I'd love to learn some tips and tricks on how I can make this better, okay? So scroll below this video right now. Seriously, take 2 minutes, comment on the video. As always, click the like button and then click the subscribe button. So subscribe to this channel and to the 7 Figure Principles podcast, and I'll see you in the next video. Thanks.